Welcome to the second part of the three-part series on holistic health, where I'm going to be talking about mental health specifically. If you haven't seen the first part, it's not required, but I do recommend it, although there may be slight overlaps because it's really hard to separate the meta topics, the meta issues from the mental level, but I gave my best, and I think there will be quite a few new points in this video that I haven't covered in the first. And if you're more interested in physical health, then there's the third part of the video. I hope you find something in this list. Some things, I'm fully aware that you may be aware of these. Many of these points may not be new, but because of all the input that we get from the outside, we have a tendency to sometimes forget very basic and very simple things. And this video is also meant as a small reminder on these things. So don't expect just to get new knowledge on every corner, but be reminded of the things you already know and see how much maybe you lost track of certain things in your life. And you may, I encourage you to incorporate them again into your life to increase your health. Let's start with the first category, which I call qualities. So a few points that I want to mention here. I think what I learned from many chats with people is that one of these core problems that you can have is your self-esteem. So if you think of yourself that you may not be worth much, or you're useless, or I don't know what, there are many negative things you could say about yourself. This, in the long run, will have disastrous results. So, you can easily check on yourself, like look in the mirror, can you say, I love myself? I love myself. If you can say that, that's a good thing. But if you cannot, or there are aspects which you maybe even hate about yourself, take a deep look at them. And maybe also with the next points I'm going to talk about, these can help you to build a healthy self-esteem, because it's really a core aspect of your mental health, and it's also in your hands. The second point, which connects to this, accept yourself as you are. You could judge yourself about a million things and compare yourself to a million people and always find someone to which you're inferior. But it doesn't make sense. Yeah, yes, you can compare, and that's okay, but if you're not accepting who you are right now, with all your good and bad qualities that you have, you're basically running away from the only thing that you have, which is the current moment, the now, things as they are right now. And if you do that, in my opinion, you lose the base from which you can act. Because if you don't even dare to look in the mirror, then how are you gonna fix anything, let's say, about your looks, if you don't even know how you look in the mirror? So this is not to say that everything is supposed to stay. I'm not saying don't improve, don't work on yourself. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just that be kind of neutral. And look at yourself, look at your, usually we think of the bad points in our lives and the negative qualities that we have, which is just an aspect of you. You have many good qualities also in yourself, and you could also look at them all the time and say, wow, I'm such an intelligent guy, wow, I'm so handsome. You could also do the same thing, right? Whatever it is, like acceptance of what is right now to begin with, is a solid base for change. Because if you don't do that, you're driving blind in a sense, because there's no starting point really if you don't look at what's really the problem. So I encourage you to always do that. Always look at the problems. We also come to this in another category later. Yeah, I made a video about this, and it's one of my it's one of those qualities that I like to mention as one of those that I find so basic that basically it changes everything if you switch this setting. So I call it trusting the life process, or trusting the universe. Like, you can name it differently if you want to, but it's the idea that everything that happens in your life happens for your own good, and happens for good of mankind and nature and everything, the whole universe. If you come to the conclusion that, let's say, the world is going down, everything is going to be destroyed, and I don't know what, that's also a valid point of view, how you can see things. But if you take these two alternatives and realize that with both of these, you don't know whether that's true or not, even if you come from that perspective, why not just choose the perspective where you trust in the life, right? Instead of seeing conspiracies and like negativity around every corner and whatnot, why not just say that, okay, whatever is there is there for you? The experience that I had personally, just on a short anecdote here, was such that before I had an experience in Mexico, I understood this on a mental level, but with the experience that I had with the shaman, it was so that I knew that I'm being protected. I just knew it. And it was absolutely like, how could I have thought otherwise? And from that point on, something really changed at the core of my, let's say, operating system. The switch from fear to trust was really beyond the 50% mark, so that now I do trust in the life process. And as with every point where you get closer to truth, you will see that you're not going back to the old version, because you realize where I am now is closer to truth compared to where I've been before. So I would say, if you evolve, there will be this point where you learn to trust the life. And it's not even about learning. I mean, it's the trust that you have to get into the universe as well. It's not just there. But I'm just pointing your attention towards it, so you can learn this skill in the beginning, and then it will come by itself, and it doesn't need any additional effort, really. And as I said, I made a video about this. Yeah, learn to build gratitude, forgiveness, and empathy. I've never been someone who holds grudges very long against people, and if I do, only like because an issue hasn't been really resolved. But it's, compared to other people, I think it's quite rare. I mean, why would you carry, for example, a grudge against someone when you can't change anything about the past anyway, and maybe you're not even meeting that person anymore in your life? But let's just take this as an example. So someone insulted you and you will never see that person again. So if your mind is like processing what that person said to you, maybe for months or even years, like all the time you're thinking about this, like you're investing your mental energy into that topic, and so the past you cannot change to begin with, and then also in the future there's nothing you can change about it. So your energy is kind of stuck in this past experience and past event. And how can you resolve that situation? Just, okay, forgive that person, just let it be, right? And it kind of, in general, it just frees up your resources. So that's on the forgiveness part. And then on gratitude. Gratitude, or building gratitude, helps you to see the good in life. It's a kind of similar thing, like you know the thing, you can see the bad everywhere, or you can see the good everywhere, right? And if you understand some like really deep truths about the universe, you will understand that there is no good and no bad, and you can just basically only create it. So if you change your system in such a way that you can be grateful for things, that will lift your energy, and you will start to see more things for which you can be grateful for. Which means if your attention goes there, then it cannot go to all the negative things. So gratitude is something that I personally think it's quite difficult actually to build gratitude, I'm just saying, like we're living in a very rich country and we have basically all the material needs that are there, and it always feels so, yeah, of course it's there, right? Of course. Where I notice I can be more grateful is when I'm traveling to countries that are poorer than Germany, and then I notice things that are missing there or lacking, or things, that I have at my home that I don't have when I'm traveling, like a bike, for example. Very often I don't have a bike when I'm traveling, and then I'm missing that. So when I come back, or maybe even a hot shower, then I'm very grateful for that. And it can be these tiny, tiny small things. Just imagine how many other people in the world, they don't have the luxury that you have. They don't even have a bathroom, maybe. They may not have a computer, a mobile phone whatsoever. They may have no comfort. So I think traveling, or just at least seeing a video of a country where people are not as fortunate in terms of material things, may be helpful to build gratitude. So it's a healthy habit. You can do it maybe every day in the evening or every now and then, and just see what you're grateful for on that day. And empathy, of course. I mean, I could say many things about empathy here, but if empathy is lacking in society, then it basically crumbles down. I see it like, if I have empathy for someone, there's this connection. It's like a band between me and the other person. But if there's no empathy, if there are no connections between us, we're all separated, and then, like, if I imagine a cell, for example, in the human body, all would fall apart, right? So, and this connection should be positive, so that you try to understand the other one. It should not be, there can also be negative connections, right? But try to build positive relationships to people, because in the long run, it will also come back to you, right? And yeah, it's something, I don't know to what degree, but I think many people have not really learned that skill. And it's something to be aware of. The second category that I have is called calmness. We live in such hectic times that we can easily get into this mode where the whole thinking is like infested by this idea that we have to be productive. You have to do something all the time. You have to achieve something, And that's really something that sucks your energy. So building calmness, just be calm, be quiet, be serene, is like the counter for this hectic society that we live in. And of course, I can recommend meditation here. There may be a million ways of doing meditation. I'm not going into all the different types, but basically what I want to say here is to make like a little basic thing very clear. There's this meditation where you focus on a thing, like any object. It can be any mental object that you have. And there can be meditation where you don't do this kind of stuff. The one I would rather call concentration, which is also a skill that you can hone. And for the other one, I think you need to be a bit more advanced, so that when a thought comes up, you realize there's a thought right now there. But then if you don't have anything where you put your attention towards, your mind easily gets lost in these, like the next thought that may come, or some body sensation or whatsoever. And earlier, like when I started with this whole yoga and meditation thing and so on, there were also people telling me that there is this method of meditation where you think about something, like, oh, I want to get some clarity about this or that topic. But to be honest, right now, I would not call this meditation. It's thinking about something, and you will still be in the beta brainwaves, and it doesn't really help. It's just a bit more concentrated thinking. So meditation does not mean to think about something. Also, I'm not claiming that I'm an expert on meditation or something, but I made many years of experience now, and still I can see how incredibly difficult it is. And a very important point about this is, where do you put your attention to? the whole time. And just choose any object. It can be top of your head, it can be your breath, and always stick with that. So for the very, very basic, what you actually do in a meditation. And it's not about sitting still all the time, not moving at all, but it's about focus. It's about learning to steer your attention where you want it to be. That's the point. That's the point of meditation. In the beginning. Be in the here and now. If you're thinking about past issues that have happened or problems that may occur in the future, all the time, I guess you can say you're not really in the here and now, but you're in some kind of a mental construct. So your attention is put into something that is, in a sense, abstract and not real. Of course, thoughts are there. I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's more like it's as if you take away like all the input from, let's say, the material world, and you go into this layer where everything is not real. So you're not in the here and now. So it's just a model of something. These models may be kind of accurate, but still everything that you do on the mental level will always stay a model. And I encourage you to kind of always, when you notice this, come back to the current moment. Because as Eckhart Tolle also says, in the current moment, in the here and now, there cannot be any problems. Because if you're listening to me right now, in this very moment, I'm pretty sure you forgot all of your problems. Everything that you thought was a problem, and now you're being reminded of this, so you're thinking of it again, all of a sudden it's there. But if you're in the current moment, they do not exist. And we have these mental habits, of course. I mean, it's kind of innate and built into our system, but we can master this, that we have a tendency to think about negative things from the past or fears about the future. And yeah, I encourage you to always come back whenever you see there's when you invest too much time into these mental processes. Yeah, because often, and even if you're very intelligent, like especially when you're very intelligent, you will notice that you can also run into analysis paralysis. And I notice it just takes enormous amounts of energy, and sometimes you don't even produce any solution for something. And if you're in the now, these problems are not there. And sounds easy, but difficult to master. Yeah, the next point is to think less in general. I also made this video about this, about overthinking, but rather come back to your senses. So, as I said before, on the mental level, you will, it costs you energy. If you don't recognize this, then let me just tell you that you are. I mean, of course, the brain, you may know, uses a lot of energy compared to the rest of your system, a lot of energy. And if thinking all day is what you do, then just be aware that in this area in your brain, a lot of energy is consumed. Coming back to your senses, the German have an interesting word for this. It's called besinnen. And it means, like when someone goes crazy and you say besinn dich, it means coming back to your senses, which I find very interesting, because it means instead of being in this mental cloud that is not the reality, please come back to your senses and realize what is there right now. For example, you can feel your body. It can be hot, it can be cold, normal, or you can be hungry or thirsty or whatever, or you can see beautiful things. But coming back to your senses, to me at least, is closer to what is actually real than the mental plane. Because on the mental plane, you can also imagine the flying spaghetti monster, right? That can also be there on your mental level. And it can also be on your mental level that police is knocking at your door and kind of, how do you say, they put handcuffs onto you and take you to prison. That can exist on the mental level. But when you are with your senses, what is actually there, it's not there. So you can create a lot of negative energies just by thinking about certain things. And I think that it's a good method to come back to your senses, what you feel, what you smell. Also on the energetic level, like how does your body feel? Okay, maybe it feels bad, but look at it. It's really important. Yeah, so far to that point. Yeah, another small point, I said it before, is save your energy and don't waste it. Like, be aware that also your body is like a biological machine and it needs energy. Without the question where this energy comes from, because it doesn't always just come from your food that you have. But just be aware that there is a certain amount of energy that you input into your system, and you will also produce some work with your body and also with your brain. And just this very simple thing, be aware that you don't input less than what you need, or that you just, and put it differently, that you overwork, or like produce maybe something that's called burnout or whatever. Very, very simple thing, but I just want to remind you, maybe it's the right point for you right now. And reduce your screen time, especially before you go to sleep. It's very healthy to turn all your screens off at least 1 hour before you go to sleep, because your brain will still be engaged with what you saw, and it will be more difficult for the brain to fall asleep directly after you looked on your screens than if you have a break and your brain can switch to the alpha mode, to the more relaxed state. And also, in terms of screens, I would recommend to turn down the brightness on your screens as much as you can, because otherwise it's bad for your eyes. Yeah, but in general, reduce your screen time. The next category I called thinking patterns. One of the things that I learned during a mushroom trip, specifically with Amanita muscaria, was the insight that I can't do anything wrong. Like, we can't do anything wrong. Whatever we do at the current moment is always is always the highest potential of that current moment. You can always look back and then say, oh, what I did there, maybe next time I want to improve, right? But at the time you did it, that was your highest potential at that point in time. And you can say, okay, next time I want to do it differently. And then the next time comes, and maybe you're still in the old pattern, maybe in the new. But it doesn't matter, because however you act is always the best that you can give, right? If your energy is low and you're yelling at people and you're angry, aggressive, fearful, whatever, still that is your highest potential at that moment, right? Or maybe not highest potential, maybe slightly misleading, but it's the best thing that you can do at that moment. So how can you, this thought of doing anything wrong is in a sense poisonous. It's wrong, because whatever you do, you have been given the freedom to do whatever you want to do. And I mean, then saying, well, I'm deciding to go this path or that path, and somehow it was wrong, like in the sense of morally wrong, not that, oh, I made a bad decision, but in the sense of, oh man, I yelled at this person, I did it wrong or something. Of course, you can always improve on your behavior. I'm not saying you shouldn't improve, but it's the idea of like this base idea that whatever you do is okay. Whatever you do, whatever you choose to experience is okay, right? And all these limitations, they basically just come from the outside world. Or maybe even they challenge you with expanding your boundaries of what you thought was possible. Next point, every emotion is okay. Many generations have been, let's say, programmed with the idea that certain emotions are not okay. So being angry is not okay, and also you should hide your sadness, and maybe, I don't know, hide your loneliness or whatsoever. Like, all of this thing, like of this kind of talk is bullshit. Because these emotions have been given specifically to us as a tool, as a means to handle the very situation that is occurring at that point. And if we don't use these tools for whatever reason, right, then we're not, how do you say that? Like, we're not really channeling this experience, we're pushing it down. Like, we're not using the tool to release stressful situations. The tools that we have been given, like innate tools that we have, like crying or like yelling. And I encourage you to uninstall all these programs that have told you that you cannot cry, you shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. Get rid of all of this. And to put it simply, just yell at people if you really have to, right? And if you're sad, go ahead and cry. No one will say, oh, he's crying. Maybe children do that, but that's also because of bad programming from the society. Maybe we are afraid of these kind of things, but usually it's not going to happen, right? The people I deal with, they are very understandable, and they see that these things have been suppressed for generations and generations. And it's up to you and me and everyone to, as I said, uninstall these programs because they are useless. It's just in the wrong direction. In general, omit judging and comparisons. Because judging will usually give out the energy to someone else, like you're higher than them. And the problem that I see with many people is that they cannot distinguish between a comparison and a judgment. For example, when you say, I'm bigger than you. For many people, there is already, although it's just a comparison, they will put a judgment in there and most likely think, oh, someone who's bigger is better than someone else. Although if you just try to express the simple fact that something is bigger than something else, they will add this judgment in there. And it's like, I personally think there should be a clear line between these two things, and that be very precise when someone says something like this to you, so that you can recognize what part of this is just a normal comparison without any judgment, and like what did he or she say that is actually like a judgment statement. For example, you look shitty, or even you stink would not necessarily be a judgment. It could just be like the factual statement that he or she noticed your body odor. A judgment for me, like something where it's very really clear, would be something like, you're dumb as fuck, like, or you're what else? Like, for me, that's a really obvious one. Like, you're so dumb, because this already carries very obviously a negative energy in it. But when you say, I consider myself more intelligent than you, to me, that is not a judgment. That is a comparison. But mostly this whole point here is not so much about what I just described, but more about the fact that leave all of this away. I mean, if you can, then stop judging anything, because it doesn't really serve a purpose except feeding the ego with some illusion that, oh, for example, I'm better than someone else, or, oh, I'm worse than someone else. Both of these can be food for the ego, and you don't want that. Like, there is really no reason for this kind of energy to give to your ego. And comparisons, it also means like, oh, the other person has more money than me, or the other person is more beautiful, or whatsoever. But what does it really matter? Even if you do that, if you can do it in a sense that I just described, saying, oh, yeah, she's more beautiful than I am, or maybe, yeah, he's richer than I am, that is fine. If you don't put the judgment in there, saying, oh, I'm a bad, ugly fuck, or I'm poor as a beggar, or whatever, and I hate myself for it. That's the big difference here. Do the comparisons without the judgment. It may require some training at first, but I think it's worth, because then also your language is very precise and very clear, and I prefer that. Reduce second thoughts. Once you made a decision, you made that decision, and you should not change back and forth all the time, because what happens is you will waste a lot of energy, and this usually happens if you're someone who's very much in his brain, very much on the mental level. There are a certain type of people, for example, the Taurus people or the Earth people may have a tendency to not do these kind of things. They may make a decision and then just stick with it. There are different routes to go here. Let's say the more earth-bound people, let's take Taurus. They will not evaluate as many options in the beginning. They would choose more quickly, and then they will stick with it and go through the end. And something that I want you to be aware of, or maybe reduce, is this overthinking, where instead of just seeing a few options in the beginning, you try really to scan the whole tree of possibilities. So you span the tree even bigger, and then you go deeper into each branch of that tree. And eventually, you may start walking one of those branches, and then you notice, oh, but what about the other aspect? So what can happen is that you're constantly, maybe you're getting new input, or maybe not. It doesn't really matter, because you can get stuck in these thought loops. And so try and get the habit of, once you made that decision thoroughly, then stick with that decision. And don't change all the time back and forth between decisions and between actions, because this will cost a lot of energy. The next point is also a point that I like really much. I call it usually a milestone of understanding and wisdom. The milestone that you know nothing. I don't know anything, really. It goes with a big portion of humility, to be able to say that and really mean it. And it's a helpful point of view. I think it's one of those things, like, once you got this understanding, you won't go back and claim that you understood and know all these things. It's like, the more you know, the less you know, right? So, and if you go that into the extreme, you will really begin to recognize that you don't know anything, because your point of view is always very limited. The information that you got up until now was always limited to a certain degree. So to have the hubris to think that you can kind of see all the factors together and everything, it may not be the best thing to do. So, I mean, I made other videos about this, but go with humility and don't claim to be an expert really on anything, except if you really, really know in this specific field. You know, I know what I'm talking about, but even then, still be open for new information and to connect even that level of expertise, maybe with a completely different field or new information. Don't ever think that, even if you're an expert in something, that you reached a limit and you cannot learn anything new in that field. When I was 18 or something, I thought, yeah, I kind of know everything that is there to know. Like, what is there really more to know? And looking back, even like many years ago, it's like, how could I have such a thought? Like, what kind of ridiculous thought is that? Or maybe even not me, but kind of like everything is already known, and what is there really to find out? It's all there. Kind of. Be like a child again. This is also under the category of thinking patterns. Why? Because children have this natural tendency, especially the younger ones, that they don't use their intellect as much. They are way more connected with their intuition and with their bodily needs, and overall just with a, let's say, pure nature. Of course, there's this whole thing where you grow your intellect and you grow your ego and everything, and it's all part of the story of being human. That's fine. But just remember, or just have a look at how kids behave. They don't overthink and kind of get stuck in their minds, or usually, at least it shouldn't be that way, they are not kind of pressured by their complete surroundings and squeezing them into small corners, forcing them to do work that they don't want to. If they haven't been destroyed by society and by their upbringing and friends and whatnot, they will have this tendency to be kind of strong and do what they want, even small children. So they have this as an innate ability. It's just that we make so many mistakes with raising children that we destroy this, and we want them to also behave like most of us do. I guess most parents actually want a copy of themselves or a better version of themselves when they have a child, which is a completely different topic. But my point here is, get out of the head and just think of how children are, how they behave, and try to behave a little bit more like this again. Set goals. Set goals, but don't be really fixated on them. Because you may have learned that it's about the path and the progress and the journey, and not about the result. If you're fixated on the result, you would just have like a tiny, short amount of time which you actually enjoy. Let's say you get this new car, or you get a salary raise or whatever. Yeah, you're happy for how long? A few days, a few weeks, and that's it. But if you do enjoy the journey of what you are actually doing, you get this, you can enjoy more or less every moment, even the challenges, because you know you're on a journey and that's what you're doing and that's why you're here. So setting goals to begin with, also because otherwise you can have a tendency to get into stagnation, which you should avoid. But with these goals, like you can also have very long-term goals. It can also be goals where you think, I may never reach this goal in my life. And that would also be fine, because if you understand that this is about the journey and for you to do whatever you want to, if you want to have fun, you can set yourself kind of a goal just to have fun. If you want to build a company, you can also do that. The point is that there is no one thing, one size fits all goal that everybody should reach, except maybe enlightenment, although I'm not really sure about that. I mean, I guess not everybody is ripe and mature for enlightenment. I don't even know whether I am in this lifetime. I have no idea. Set your goal. Like, this is your goal. This is not someone else's goal. This is really about asking you what you want to do with your life, in this life that you have. What do you want to do? What do you want to experience? Set a goal and enjoy the journey. Be aware of affirmations and the power of words in general. I also made a video about this. Affirmations, and basically also the sentences that you say to yourself and your thoughts, they have a very big power that you may not be aware of. Like all this mental chatter that you have about yourself, like, I'm such an idiot, or nobody loves me, or whatever. I don't know, there can be a million thoughts that you have. If you keep repeating these things, every thought carries a certain energy, and it will influence your system. So the way I see it is a bit like, in terms of elements, the thoughts would be connected to the air and ether element. And they are very fluctuating a lot. They are not as material yet, and still you do have some influence over them. But if you don't take care, these thoughts will manifest into words, like as a step in between. And these words will also manifest into actions, and these actions will become your habits, and they will form who and what you are. And once these habits are formed and your body is formed and, this kind of stuff, it's getting increasingly difficult to change what has been manifested. This is also a concept from the IT, that when you construct an IT system, let's say before you program all the stuff, if there's an error in your analysis part of it, it's cheaper to correct this error in that part before any line of code has been written. But once the code is there and the systems are running, it takes way more money to change the running system. And this is very similar to what we have with our affirmations and thoughts and everything. It's cheap to change the thoughts here, but once you have a habit of 20, 30, 40 years of acting out on these thoughts, it takes way more effort to change it. Because not only do you have to change your thoughts, but you also have to change your habits and maybe even part of your body. Maybe you became fat because you never watched out for your proper diet. And then you get the extra effort. Also be aware of affirmations, because they, the words in general, because every word and every sentence and everything that you say to other people will have an influence on them. So it's not only about you, it's also about the other people. And you can use this power for the greater good. So I think I can pretty much say that whatever I do, there is always a positive intention behind it. Like, if there's not if there's some ego remaining in terms of good intentions for me, it's super, super small, right? And this carries over in all the words and everything that I do. And I mean, it may sound obvious, right? I'm just repeating it. Maybe some people forgot about this, but choose your words wisely, because they do have an effect, right? It's not just about what you say, also how you say it, but yeah, just remember, words have an energy. Be careful with it. Yeah, and as the last point, I want to point your attention towards the difference between religion and spirituality. For me, religion means something like there is this dogma, and you have to either believe what we all believe, or you're not part of the group. That's like medieval, Europe, where okay, you had to kind of be part of this society, otherwise you had big problems, right? Versus spirituality, for me, it means this is very, very personal. This is about your unique path and your unique understanding, your truth, your experience, and also, let's say, your maturity, or you live a very special life, an individual life that no one else lives. So spirituality for me also has this aspect that you have to find your own truth. At some point, you will have this filter, whatever comes from the outside, you will just hear as information, but not as truth. So there will be this, I usually call it a filter, that can be installed. And you just don't take it in without thinking about it, but you will always check whether you want to accept this as your truth, or whether you want to observe or invest on what has been said. But the main point is, I would recommend not to get into religion so much, because it's very, in a sense, stiff. And also with old energies. So there's these people who say to you what the truth is supposed to be, and you just have to follow blindly, right? And I don't like that. You can make your own experiences completely independent from any religion, and you don't need anyone to tell you what the truth is. You can get impulses from the outside, that's fine, and maybe even necessary, but yeah, don't go with these religious dogmas. I think that's old. I don't want that. The next category is fear and shadows. Ooh. Be aware that most of the fear that you have is imagined. What do I mean by this? Most things that you fear, do not occur because there's actually a tiger chasing you or is a venomous snake in front of you, but it's about thoughts about the past or the future. And I said it before, like, these things are just mental constructs. They have, to be a bit extreme, they have nothing to do with reality, right? It's just something that you created. And I mean, yes, you can also create good thoughts, but this point here is about the fear that you have. Learn the distinction between an actual fear, for example, also a fear that is based on your body in terms of there's a real threat at the moment, and something that you just imagine. A gray zone where maybe where, for example, your boss kind of yells at you or something because you feel threatened in your survival in a sense, because he gives you your money, and if he throws you out, then you may be homeless or whatever. But also these things are just thoughts, right? It's in the current moment, I wouldn't assume that he would run at me with a knife. He would just talk, right? And that doesn't really hurt me. So yeah, be aware of this distinction. And I mean, fear in general is such a big topic, and I can just encourage everyone to look at your fear in general. But I guess we come to this in the next points. Also, your fears are your biggest chance to grow. And they can also increase your self-confidence once you overcame them. Because, I mean, these things are the very things that we don't want to do, because we feel like we don't have the skills or capabilities, or we don't know what's going to happen. But from my experience, the funny thing really about it is that once you look at it and you kind of act as if there's nothing to fear, this stuff vanishes like magically. I'm not going into one story that I had here, but be aware, this is a big chance for you to grow, and maybe the best chance for you to grow. And again, distinguish between your thoughts about the outcome and the actual experience that you haven't done, because that's also the problem. Your brain is going to tell you that it's so smart and knows what's going to happen, but it doesn't, right? Completely unexpected outcomes may be there. Like the complete opposite of what you're fearing may actually be true and may come true, and you don't know that. And that's the difficult thing about the mind. Yes, it can do projections and calculations, but still, these are just models and it's not the actual reality. And I invite everyone, including myself, to come back more into actual experiences and understand that there's nothing really to fear in life. Something that I learned the last few years, and I keep hearing it over and over from different people, different sources, from my own experience. Look at your shadows, look at your fears, and give them space. And there is this concept of it wants to be seen. And often it's even so that you don't even have to do anything with it. It's really just about giving it space. Here I do want to share a story that I had recently about, let's say, the court and the court system and law system, where I felt like they had somehow the upper hand, and in the end they will, when they rule something, then I will, how do you say this in English, like I will be on the lower end, inferior end or whatsoever, and I can't do anything against it. So this topic was there for quite a few years actually. Although I knew that legally I was on the right side, but the court, like the judge, was behaving like a witch, seriously. And I knew she was kind of against me and I didn't really know why. So what I did was, I was sitting down and giving this fear or this energy against the judge, I was giving it space and saying, okay, I will feel it now. I will look at it and I will feel it and give it space. And what happened was that afterwards, I kind of knew, okay, this topic is done. Like, I felt quite secure and quite sure about that this topic would not bug me anymore, although there was still, in a sense, a running process, a running trial, I guess you say. I kind of knew, no, I'm done, because in my inside, I have found the strength and I'm not afraid anymore. And I can tell you that's what happened. Like, if you want to call it that way, I bet the judge, energetically, I made this decision, or I found my peace with it. Also showing the strength with actual letters that I sent. But the point is that I just didn't follow the order of the court, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. And I must say I'm a bit proud of myself at this point. But but it's about looking at the shadows and giving them space. That's the whole point. And that's what we often avoid. We try to push the negative things down, which also costs us energy, instead of just living through the experience or living through the emotion or whatever may be there, right? Just let go of this pushing down. Just let it be there. Look at it. It will not kill you. No, it won't. You know? But once you experience it, it's out of your system, and then it's gone. And cry or yell or whatever you want to. I mean, those are the tools you have for this kind of stuff. And maybe even get someone's support if you want. But look at it. Look honestly into your demon's eyes or into your shadow, you know. It's helpful. And then, of course, talk about your problems with other people, because it's very likely you don't have all the necessary tools right now, and you don't have all the best ideas how to solve your problems. And there are many people who do have a lot of methods at hand. Me, for example. I don't have all the methods, but more and more, like every month and I don't know, a year, I get new methods. And now having such a powerful tool like constellation work, for example, I haven't really given it a lot of attention before, but once you know these tools, and maybe you know someone who, even if you have zero tools at hand for like psychological support, for energetic support, or like constellation, on this field layer, there will be a lot of people who have. And when you talk about the things, it shows your openness to be helped. And if you do that, you're giving the universe a sign saying that, okay, look, I'm really ready, I'm open, when you talk to other people. And I also experienced that when people talk about their problems, just talking about it, because it's then be seen by themselves and by other people. That's what I just mentioned in the last point. It just wants to be seen. And this can also magically dissolve the problem, just talking about it. And there's really no need to be ashamed. If you find the right person to talk to, they will listen and they will not judge you. To the contrary, they will be, I guess they can be proud of you because you're willing to open yourself and to show all this weakness that you have. But I know it can, like, many people have this issue with shame, being ashamed. And it's one of the lowest energies that you can have. And it's of no use, really. It's really of no use because you are human. We are all inherently flawed, in a sense. We all make mistakes. We all have our weaknesses. And that's perfectly normal. So there's no need to be ashamed of anything. Nothing, really. So yeah, get rid of this energy as quick as you can, because it's a huge showstopper. Yeah, let go of control and perfectionism. Perfectionism has this weak spot where you never really I mean, depending on what you do, but it can happen that you never really start with anything, because you could also get stuck in your mental plans trying to, with the idea like, I'm just going out into the world once it's perfect. But for many things, this is just not possible. And instead of waiting until you're perfect, which will never be the case anyway, just start on whatever level you are. So one small example here would be Reiki. Back then it taught me that if I wasn't starting because I thought, I don't really know what to do here, then I would never have learned it anyway, because you have to do it in order to understand and to grow. You have to apply it, really. You can't just read books on it. Like, honestly, I never read a book about Reiki because it doesn't matter. You have to have the experience, and I didn't want to clutter my brain with, let's say, models from other people. As I told you before, I prefer actual experience and my own experience. And yes, I did learn from my teacher or my master or whatever, but that's all. She just initiated me, and that's it. I mean, she didn't teach me like a million things, but for me it was relatively clear from the beginning that, I mean, the universe showed me. It was really like the universe gave me kind of people, led people to me, and then I could help them. And with such a like the degree or the rate of success was so high that I thought, okay, wow, this is not just coincidence, like this stuff really works. But coming back to the point is, apply and work on these things, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. And the other point of control is that we think that our intellect is so huge and that we have all the variables and we can come up with a perfect solution. And sometimes we may get close to what we want to do, and that's fine. But if you're honest, you will realize there are so many variables that are completely not in your hand, and you have to rely on whatever happens in the outside. And it can just be a simple thing like your coworker or your boss or someone that is supposed to ship a product to you. There's a million things, the weather, transportation systems. You don't control these things. And I think you get a smoother life if you understand how little control you have. You may have a little control. I'm not even sure if we do have any real degree of control, or whether it's all just, an illusion. But yeah, maybe get acquainted, or accommodated with the fact that you have less control than you think, and open yourself up to this, because otherwise you can build resistance, thinking that, things are not running the way I want, and because you want to control everything and you want to maybe micromanage everything, and this will also just take away your energy. The better approach is have life and the universe unveil and develop the way and in the speed it wants to, and not according to your speed. Or to put it differently, adjust your speed and your level of control to the universe and be in the flow with the universe. I also made a video about this. And yeah, in terms of safety, routines and habits, structures give security. So if you feel like you need more safety and security, think about like rituals that you do. Like, I don't know, having breakfast at a fixed time, or doing certain types of work or yoga at a fixed time, so that this structure, like if you just go with how the word sounds to you, like you structure your day, and the structure is usually something that is solid. So if you need this safety for some reason, this can be a helpful tool for it. Although I think that in the long run, all these structures should also be razed and destroyed, because they will in the end not be flexible enough. So me personally, at the moment, I'm more of a fan of being flexible and quickly adjusting to new situations than just behaving in the same patterns over and over again, and then not be able to deal with something new that comes from the outside. It can also be new information, right? Because these structures can also be like a prison at some point. Yeah, last point of fear and shadows. Get rid of the mainstream media. I also made a video about this, because mostly what they do, you should be aware of it, is they spread fear, and they always want to promote this idea that everything is going down and you should be afraid. And it's very simple. Like if you know what they're doing, it's so easy to see through this thing. Like, they want to have people in fear so that they are more easily controllable, because people are not sovereign, most of them, and they will be looking for leaders to tell them what to do and where to go and when to go, and what to inject into their bodies, and this kind of stuff. So they try to control the people, and it should be quite obvious if you ask me. So if you know they are manipulating you for their agenda, why would you still consume that? I wouldn't. Maybe only to know your enemy. Okay, that you can do. But after some years, I think you should actually quit doing that, because even if you understand it, even if you know all the patterns, the NLP patterns and the manipulation and so on, even if you know all that, your subconscious will still take in all the pictures and sounds and words, and it can darken your thoughts. And for me, I had like maybe 2-3 years of a slightly paranoid phase in my life, because I was dealing with people who were a lot into conspiracies, and they didn't get out of their loop. I was kind of happy to get out of there rather quickly, but seeing them now, they are still in their loop and still thinking in these negative patterns that there is this evil force who tries to kill them, which may be true, but what are you going to do about it? What can you personally do about it? So that's one of these questions that you should come to at some point, right? Yes, there are people with ill intentions, they are there, but see what is your life, right? Here in Germany, there hasn't been a forced vaccination yet. People have been talking about this for years and always yelling and being afraid, and it hasn't happened. And find your inner strength to overcome this level of paranoia. The last category for this video is miscellaneous. The first point, keep good social contacts. I think it should be pretty obvious, although looking at some people right now, I feel like, have they forgotten about the value of proper relationships to other people and to friends? I haven't really fully understood why that is exactly, but somehow social media and the messengers, I'm not really sure, instead of connecting people more, they become further away in a sense. Yes, you can reach more people, but it feels like it's not closely as intimate as relationships used to be before, for some reason. And everybody is like, they don't really commit. They don't really commit to appointments to you. And it feels like the other people, like my friends and so on, they're not really that important, So I can always, change some appointments and not show up and this kind of stuff. And because there are so many other people, because you connect all of a sudden to, let's say, instead of 10 people that you called friends 20 years ago, now you can connect to 1,000 people. But what does it help? Like, if you know 1,000 people, how intimately can you know them, really? And this is the type of superficial relationship that I personally would avoid. Maybe you don't want to, but be aware that the more people you actively have contact with, the less you actually know them, right? I also made a video about something called a sharing circle, which could be something that with the friends you have that could upgrade the way you connect with them on a deeper level and on a heart level. I recommend go watch that video if you haven't. And a sub point of this is have a check for your partner. So this could mean two things. The one could be that if you don't have a partner, do you want a partner right now? Is that something that's missing in your life? And the other point would be, if you do have a partner, do you actually benefit from the relationship with him? Because a problem can be that people are in a relationship and they are afraid to quit it, although they know there's a lot of disadvantages. And I even heard from people who are like repeatedly beaten in a relationship. And I'm like, I gave them the recommendation, how about you instantly quit that relationship? And that person, it was a chat back then, that person told me, oh, thanks, that's such a nice advice. You know, all the other people, like all the other listeners on that platform, they told me, wow, if you love that person, you should stay together. And I'm thinking, is that the advice that people actually give? Like, what the hell, man? So the point is, did you have enough, let's say, also with a sexual relationship to someone? Like, do you have enough of this? Do you need more cuddling, or what do you need? Like, do you need a partner, or maybe you're fed up with your partner? So check on this aspect and be daring to also quit your relationship or to approach new people and overcome maybe your fear of approaching a girl or a man or whatever. Because again, overcoming your fear, then you will come out stronger in the end. And now then all of a sudden you acquired the skill of, you can just talk to someone that you like, and you can also tell them I like you. And most likely they're not going to hate you for it. Train your intelligence and ability to discern. Of course, that's also a very strong point in many of my videos. It's so important because we get so much input from the outside. And if you don't have this skill to discern, in a sense, what is true and what is obviously a lie, you're in this field of believing, or like you're not really so sure. And this uncertainty can also lead to anxiety and maybe some frustration, and to the fact that other people can more easily control you. But if you learn to discern, and if you, train your own intelligence in a way, and also trust on your own, like common sense even. Like sometimes it doesn't even need, like a doctor degree or, PhD degree, or, it just needs common sense sometimes. Because the lies that people tell you, like let's just go with the mainstream media, they are so huge. It's like with the Nazis back then. Just, tell a lie that is so big that nobody would actually question that because it sounds so absurd already. But just use your common sense, and this sometimes can already debunk so many things. And trust that just because mainstream media tell you something, or even 1,000 other people tell you something, trust on your own truth and your common sense on whether things are true or not. Have hobbies, enjoy, and play. I know people that they don't really have hobbies, and all they do is work or learn and study and whatnot, but they don't take breaks. They don't have this phase or the time slots where they actually play something. I know someone, he's very advanced, I like him very much, and he's working a lot, but he doesn't play at all. He doesn't play at all. And I grew up playing a lot of games. Board games, card games, also computer games. And for me, it's very normal. And if you look into the animal kingdom even, or look at small children, you will also notice they play a lot. Especially with younger beings, you can see that they play in order to train their abilities. And they do it with fun, and it's easy, and it's not strenuous. It's something that comes naturally and light. And I invite you to remember that there's this aspect of play. Just enjoy the time that you have. Like, we, especially Germans and the Western people, we are kind of programmed into this production mode, like work like a machine, optimize yourself in every corner, and be effective, efficient, and I don't know what. That's not the only reason why you're here. That's a fucking programming, sorry. Like, that's what society programmed most of us, to be a working slave. It's a sad truth, but that's how it is. Even if it's unintentionally, because all the others do it as well, still, it's a very sad programming that has been put upon us. And we should have way more time to play and just enjoy, right? And the last point is to give yourself the right input. Also to choose your teachers wisely and consciously. When I was younger, I wasn't that conscious about what kind of input I give to myself. This could be all sorts of things, like, for example, the music. I listened to a lot of music that now I would consider very dark and very, in a sense, brutal, or I don't know what. And nowadays I'm thinking like, I wonder how much this music influenced my mood and my mind back then. Or what kind of movies or series do I watch? Do I just watch slice of life anime? Or do I watch gore horror movies all the time? That's a huge difference, man. Like, especially for your subconscious. Be aware that your subconscious registers all these things. And even if you think like, oh yeah, that's not so scary, there may be this part of you who knows better. Like your inner child or some part. And I realized a few years ago when I was watching Breaking Bad for the second time. It's a very good series. I think it's very, very well done, but it's so well done in a sense that you actually connect with the actors. And then what happens in your system, if you're aware of it, is that your body mirrors. Like, if your body cannot distinguish between something that you see on a screen and something that happens in real life. For your body, it's the same thing. So when there's a lot of stress in the movie or in the series or whatever, this will also be empowered in your own body. And I noticed that and I thought, okay, now I will really stop watching these things. Be aware. So choose your input consciously and choose your teachers consciously and wisely. Then also goes with discernment, right? But there are so many people who claim to be someone, and you can relatively quickly say that they have an ego like, I don't know how big. And once you understood certain truths, you can spot bullshit more easily. And always have this bit of skepticism and also if you want to watch crap, if you want, I don't know, like crappy videos of whatever type, you can also do that. But if you choose them consciously. Like, okay, now, I didn't laugh for quite some time. Okay, maybe I'm going to watch these stupid cat videos or I don't know what. That's perfectly fine. It's just being aware of what you input into your system. Same with, let's say, mainstream media, or can also be with food, can be with vaccines, all sorts of stuff. Music, people that you surround yourself with. Choose all these things wisely and consciously. And be aware that everything has consequences. I thank you very much for watching this video. This, of course, was the second part of the 3-part series. If you found any points that I missed out, and I'm pretty sure there will be points, I would be very happy if you were to comment down below the video, because I'm also quite positive that there will be a follow-up video on this series, which will be a bit shorter overall. So yeah, I'm pretty much looking forward to your input on things that I may have forgotten. And yeah, also I hope you liked the video, so I'm happy about a like and subscribe if you want to. And if you were to share this video with your friends, because honestly I think that this is a type of information, I mean, maybe new information, maybe reminders, doesn't matter, but it's a type of information that it's so universal that we need to be reminded of this every now and then. And I hope to achieve this with this video. Yeah, and then I hope to see you on the 3rd part, which will be about the physical health. And so long, wish you all the best with your mental health and with your healing path. See you in the next video.